Senator John Albers. He represents the 56th District, which includes portions of Cherokee, Cobb, and Fulton counties. He serves as chairman of the Public Safety Committee, vice chairman of Finance, and subcommittee chair of the Appropriations Committee. He's also a member of the Rules, Regulated Industries, and Education committees. Senator Albers is a member of the Senate leadership, serving as the chief deputy whip. And Senator Albers was a kidney donor for his son in 2021.
Good morning. How's everybody doing?
Awesome.
All right. Let's see here. We'll get some slides that we can go through here. Okay, perfect. Make sure that. Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to talk today. I literally just left the Youth Day Parade in Roswell. What a great day for a parade. Seeing all those young kids out there, nothing makes my heart more warm than seeing that happen. So this is a picture of my family in August of 2020. Everything in life seemed right in August of 2020. In fact, even though we were going through COVID at the time, I remember vividly in our cul-de-sac, we grabbed a couple of grills because we were trying to social distance, right? And we were having kind of an outside barbecue, and kids were running around and adults were talking. And I remember catching myself probably doing the worst thing you could ever do, which is bragging. I thought, well, I've been married for 27 and a half years. We got a great marriage. My older son, Will, had graduated from college. He was working for the GBI, the Georgia Bureau of Investigation. He was engaged to be married to a lovely young girl, bought a house. My younger son was getting ready to head to college, and he was already a junior from high school from doing dual enrollment. And I just thought, man, I'm just checking every box. My business job was going great. The work I was doing in the Senate, trying to help people out during a tumultuous time, was good. Even though I was working literally 20-plus hour days, I just felt fulfilled, and I thought, what, everything in the world is going right. And then, you might hit the next slide. And then our son, Will, who, when you're 24 years old, you don't go to the doctor, unfortunately. Now, when he was 6 years old, they always said he had a high creatinine level. But something that we just watched, and they gave him a pill to flush his kidneys. Never knew there would be a problem. They checked it every year when he went for his checkup. But all of a sudden, Will, in that last picture, who you might see as a twig, had lost 25 pounds. And he was skin and bones. And we said, Will, you got to go to the doctor. But he was a 24-year-old, so he didn't want to go to the doctor. Then he started getting sick to his stomach, which followed by vomiting blood. So that went from our house to the doctor's office to Cherokee North Side's emergency room to the ICU. And this is COVID time. And we all remember what access was back then. Thankfully, I've been a firefighter and an EMT for over 30 years. So I was able to get access into the ICU, which was unheard of for most folks. And I'll tell you, I'll get emotional. And I'm not an emotional person. But no parent should see their child with that many tubes coming out of them. It was heartbreaking. We didn't know what was going on at the time. I was holding his hand, and the doctor gave me one of these, head shift nods to go out into the hallway. So I walked out into the hallway, and the doctor said, John, we don't know what's going on. All his organs are shutting down. We don't know if he's going to make it through the night. Wow. And talk about the most helpless feeling that anyone can have at that moment of their lives, that was my son. And I just remember feeling that helplessness. There's nothing I could do. I didn't even tell my wife, his mother, because she couldn't even be at the hospital knowing that she probably would have camped out in the parking lot, and that wouldn't have done any good either. And all I could do was pray. And I'm a very faithful person. I just prayed, Lord, please heal my son. So for that night, it was touch and go. We had a couple of spikes, but thank God they made it through the night. And the next morning they said, well, his kidneys are gone. They're completely shot. And we did an emergency procedure to get him onto dialysis right away. We did spend 8 days in the ICU, though, and then several more days in a regular room. But finally, we got to go home. Thank God. That was a big moment for us. And we were looking ahead. He was getting ready to be married just a couple months later. Our family was in that mode of, my wife and I are these super type A personalities, right? I'm like, we can fix this, we can make it better, right? So that's what we started to do. We went into our normal mode of getting things done. And I will tell you that when this stuff happens, it seems like when it rains, it pours, right? When something starts, something else happens, something else happens. So if you could flip the next slide for me, Rita, I appreciate it. So when it rains, it pours. Let me tell you what else then happened. We had a wonderful wedding for him. And then the day before the wedding, my uncle called me up. He said, stage 3 lung cancer, I only have one. I'll go in and give him a 25% chance to live. 3 days later, my dad has to go in for 2 major procedures. And while they weren't normally something that you'd be concerned about, every time my dad goes in the hospital, he gets a staph infection. And then we began what became the very long, arduous process of getting through the transplant process, which is challenging, right? We kept pushing through it though, and sometimes it felt like we were going around in circles sometimes, and I'm sure you all did as well. But we kept pushing through it. And then in March of that year, I had a crazy group out of Washington, D.C. say some things about me that weren't true, and I got canceled, and I lost my best job I ever had in my life. Then the next month, my son's brand new wife couldn't take all the medical stuff and walked out on me. They said that God never gives you more than you can handle. I was really questioning that. It leads up to the fact that I'm going to, because I'm Will's blood type match, trying to be the match. And my wife, who is not, is looking to be the pair, right? So we're going through all the testing. My wife comes back in. This is the end of June, early July. It was actually the last day of June. She walks in our house through the garage, the kitchen, and I see this, all the light is drained from her face. I'm like, Carrie, honey, what's wrong? They think something's severely wrong with me and my kidneys, and they made an emergency appointment for me to see the nephrologist tomorrow morning. So at this point, I was at my wit's end. I walked upstairs to our bedroom. I did not get down. I literally fell on my knees. Literally fell on my knees. And I said, Lord, I surrender. I can't do this anymore. My job in this world has always been to help other people. That's what I've been from a little kid on up. My job is to serve and help other people. But my prayer and petition was, God, I need your help. Please heal my wife. Please heal my son. Please forgive everything that's going on for anybody who I think's wrong, and please forgive me for any and all roles that I played. It was a moment that I just literally turned it all over. I couldn't carry the weight anymore. That was Thursday. Just like the next page. So Friday morning, my wife Carrie goes to the nephrologist for an emergency appointment. Calls me up. It was a misreading. It was perfectly fine. And then in the next 6 days afterwards, everything in life went the other way. My uncle rang the bell, cancer free. My father got home, no infections, he's perfectly fine. I got offered a new job. The doctor called me up and I got the greatest phone call I've ever received in my life. John, you're not just a match, you're a perfect match. Everything settled personally, and then we were scheduled 2.5 months later to have that surgery. And a phone call later, it became 2.5 weeks later. And that's what happened on July the 21st. So I want to tell you this part of the story because it's important. Wherever you have been on this journey, or will continue to be, God sent angels along the way. And, there's an old adage, you can't connect the dots as you look forward. You can only see them as you look backwards of why these things happen. Remember earlier when I said back in March, I got canceled and lost my job over some nasty social media stuff that wasn't true? Well, we had not made any of this public, what was going on in our life. Thought it was more of a private family decision. My son Will, who is now divorced, had to sell his house, living in our house again because he needed 24-hour care, doing dialysis at home and everything else. Walks into my home office and said, "Dad, I think we should make our story public." I said, "Will, really? Well, why would you want to do that?" I said, if someone goes and gets tested earlier and not waits to where I was, by the way, if we'd have waited one more day, the doctor told us without doubt he would have died. One more day. Because, and if somebody does what you do and becomes a living donor where there's awareness, wouldn't that all be worth it? Wouldn't it be better if more people were praying for us than less people were praying for us? Well, I put that story up on LinkedIn. Some may have seen that. Over 13.5 million people viewed it.
Wow.
We got over 400,000 direct messages and comments from people all over the world.
Wow.
It was amazing. We had people on the wall in Jerusalem praying for us. We had people in St. Peter's Basilica in the Vatican praying for us. We had Buddhist temples in India praying for us. We had mosques in the United Arab Emirates doing dawahs for us and praying for us. Cathedrals in Brazil and Argentina, every state. We had perfect strangers from Oklahoma asking us if they wanted to come cut our grass and help us out. Prayer blankets were sent to us from Oregon. It was unbelievable. I felt like I had saw the worst in humanity and then the very best in humanity, all within such a short window of time. I Facebook videoed a woman in Australia who is my exact age, who just gave a kidney to her son, who is my son Will's exact age.
Wow.
It was just overwhelming, the goodness that I saw. And I also felt what was coming, or what we needed to do through this whole process.
Mm.
I've never had a major surgery before July 21st of last year. But I will tell you, I could literally feel those prayers and support from so many people. So this is 5 a.m. on July the 21st of last year. So we're coming on 15 months. That's Will and I. Poor kid looks just like me. I'm sorry, you walking into Emory Hospital. And I don't know if anybody's ever heard this verse before, but Philippians 4:6-7, be anxious for nothing, but in everything, by prayer and supplication with thanksgiving, let your requests be known to God. And the peace of God, which surpasses all understanding, will guard you through the mind of Christ Jesus. I repeated this about 450 times that morning to myself. But I wasn't nervous at all. Not even a little bit. I walked in and I was, let's do this. Let's roll. And as God always has a lot of humility, because really he created me, they wheeled us back, me first, and the power went out at Emory Hospital. I'm not kidding. For 2.5 hours. And while they have a generator, they will not start surgery on backup power. And because nobody else can really get in the hospital, my wife is texting literally hundreds of people. "Oh, how's John doing?" I'm like, "Well, the power went out, right?" And of course, Will's behind me. I was unconscious. I don't remember any of this, to be candid with you, but I was supposed to be out about 10:30, 11 o'clock in the morning. And at 3:30, I remember waking up in the recovery room thinking, God, something must have went wrong, or maybe that it didn't happen. But thank God it did. It worked. The only thing that didn't happen that I was just so anxious was they couldn't take the tube out of Will's stomach yet, because apparently I had a stubborn kidney, and it took a while to get out of me and start working for him. But an hour after that, everything was fine. So we had to wait a couple of weeks for that. But we got up to the transplant floor, and I'll never forget this because they want to get you up right away and start walking around, and you got to ring the bell. Well, I didn't know about ringing the bell, and I'm like the classic guy that whatever you say, I'm going to do 3 times more of. So I'm like laughing the place 4 times, right? And nurse like, John, you got to go way back down, right, before you fall over. And if you know my son Will, he's got a rather funny personality. But his room is diagonal from the bell, and I'm on the other side. They put you on the opposite sides for a reason, so you have to get out and walk, right? So Will does not want to get up and walk, right? I'm like, buddy, you got to get up and walk. So finally, he gets up, he stumbles over, hits the bell, and walks right back in his room. But it went very, very well. I compliment, we have two of the best institutions for Piedmont and Emory in the entire nation to do that work. And the folks were just absolutely incredible. Okay, so 2 days later, I was home. Now, I'll be honest with you, the car ride home, if you go to Emory Hospital, there are way too many potholes in the road, so I held on to it. But day 3, Will's home. So this is literally 3 days. This is the 24th of July, and we're both home in our house. 1 month later, we were in very good shape. So if people like to talk about recovery time, we had that surgery on a Wednesday. The following Wednesday, I was in my office downtown working. I was, again, they tell you, go walking miles, so I will walk 4, right? Just kind of my crazy personality. But the recovery time for me was extraordinarily quick. The only thing that I was cognizant of is not lifting anything because I didn't want to pull my hernia, right? So that's the one thing I tried to really follow doctor's orders. Doctor did tell me, he said, now, John, you got to calm down, relax, and eat good. Because after the surgery, I lost 12 pounds. I was feeling pretty good about myself. And then I put 22 on. So I listened to doctor's orders maybe too much. I will tell you that if I didn't have a very small, faint scar right here, I would forget I ever had this surgery done. Completely. It's changed my life, not at all. Most importantly, Will is so healthy and happy. He was actually going to thank you. Sorry, he was actually come with me today. I'd love to be able to meet him, but he was helping him in the parade and we got separated. He's as stronger and feels better than he ever has. He's 26 years old. He's got a great career. He's got a great group of friends, family support. He's taking his anti-rejection meds, but they backed it off because of good match, which is wonderful. Look, I'd give both kidneys if I could. Look, I've been blessed to be on this earth for half a century. If I can have his life extended before that, that's what I'd do. But I also knew that this could have happened to anybody, right? Would you flip the next slide, please? 3 months later was Will's 26th birthday, and we went to Aruba. It just seemed like the right thing to do, right? There's a pina colada with my name on it at the beach. And we gladly celebrated his 26th birthday. And at that moment we were there, we decided that this is what we're going to do with our life. And this is what we're going to do as long as both of us are on this earth together, right? This is a mission and a calling because you know what? This could have happened to anybody, but God chose us, right? And we were fortunate. And I will tell you that we were very successful business-wise in this world. Carrie and I got married. We didn't have 2 nickels to rub together. We worked really hard. And we were successful. And I have access to a lot of people. I can pick up the phone and most people will answer my call. And we're getting super type A personalities to work through this process. But most people don't have that. And I can only imagine as difficult as it was for us, as it must be for anybody else. So we knew we had to change this process. So because of being connected via social media, we started helping all sorts of families. And some of them were the most incredible stories where we got to have the conversations that, by the way, you're such an inspiring talker, Lord. Thank you so much. Where you can really identify and understand, because if you weren't the person that donated or received an organ, you just don't really know, right? And it started out with that. Then I found out Georgia Transplant Foundation was a half a mile from our house. I could walk there. Wow. But I didn't even know they existed. Which is great. But now we can take that another level. Go to the next slide. So remember how I said you can't connect the dots looking backwards, right? There were miracles. I mean, God-given miracles along the way, but God gave us free will too, right? They don't happen if we sit back and don't do those, right? pure joy. We talked about a mission and calling. Read it to the next slide. So what are we doing now? Well, I authored the Giving the Gift of Life Act for Georgia. We passed it this year unanimously. Governor Kemp signed it into law, and we passed it to 7 other states already. We're going to pass it in all 50 states. Let me tell you what it does. First thing it does is for anybody who's a living donor, you can't ever be denied or have canceled your life insurance policy because it doesn't impact us whatsoever, and we need more living donors. The second part is it creates a tax exemption that was $10,000 and makes it $25,000 that donor because we know there's going to be some time away, and that's the least you can do. Now, a lot of times when you talk about bills and legislation, you're trying to kind of coax people as to why you want to do this. Well, saving lives is a pretty easy one, but the return on investment to the government is 62 to 1 because the little amount of money we help to facilitate someone being an organ donor saves so much money to the recipient. Because if you are in kidney or liver failure, as an example, the cost can be up to $250,000 a year of medical expenses. Wow. It's 15 to 25 once it's over, right? So in showing people why this is so meaningful and right is why we're going to pass it in all 50 states, but I want to do a federal version that will do 2 more things. There'll be a $75,000 tax credit on the federal side, and there will be a process to work with businesses that they will keep you employed for 6 weeks, whether you're the recipient or the donor, where you don't have to go on disability, you don't have to use up all your sick or your vacation time, et cetera. Because again, it's in everybody's best interest that we do this. There's 115,000 people right here. There's 115,000 people on that list right now. And I will not rest until it's 0. Not 1, not 10, not 100, but 0. And we can do that, right? We have to change the game, right? We have to flip the script and make sure people understand, because until you all go through this like we did, you don't know. That's true. You didn't know anything, right? Let me tell you something else we're doing. Back before September 11th, 2001, when an organ was shipped, let's say that they found a match for someone in Seattle and it was coming to Atlanta, someone would go to the airport, they'd literally hand it to the person in the airplane. It would go in the cockpit, right? Which looks like kind of a small cooler, a cycler machine. It would get to the airport in Atlanta. Somebody would be waiting at the gate. They pick up that cord, they take it right to wherever, Piedmont or Emory, so that transplant could happen. After 9/11, 2001, though, they started putting those in the cargo hold due to concerns about terrorism. We've lost hundreds of organs over the last 22 years. Hundreds, right? By literally being lost, being beat up, not being handled properly, time expiration, things of that nature. So I have been working very close with Delta Airlines, our hometown airline here in Atlanta, and we're really close. But I'm hoping that you'll hear something here in the very near future that not just Delta, but all the major airlines are going to allow that to be delivered, expedite the security line, hand it right back to that flight attendant or pilot. It'll be in the front of the airplane, do the exact same thing we did before, because we can never lose a single organ, no matter what the circumstances. Let me tell you something else we're doing. We're working with the Georgia Department of Driver Services and LifeLink, because many of you, and I'm pretty sure most of you in this room know this, but if you don't have in the front of your driver's license that you're an organ donor, please do that. Well, it's great. Technology can be a beautiful thing. Well, most of us have gone on and connected to renew driver's licenses online. So we have email access to everyone. And if you're not an organ donor today, in the near future, you're going to get an email saying, hey, you're not. It's a pretty simple process. You just have to click, 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 and you can do it that way. We can add another 1 million or 2 people onto the list right away, right? These are things that we can do. Look, I've told my wife this. Please tell all your family this. We're not going to use any of this when we die, right? Take it all, every bit of it, and give life to someone else and let it continue. Okay, so what can you do? Well, you know this. I'm preaching to the choir a little bit today, right? Being a living donor, driver's license, seeing a doctor, helping others, and praying. Don't think that it's over for you if you've already done this, or if you're going through it right now, that you can't be a beacon of light, a help, or someone else is there to help you. We have awesome groups like GTF and Lifeline and UNOS. And there's so many wonderful organizations out there to help. You can call, text, or email me 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. I don't really sleep much. It's overrated. Because you know what? While we're here on earth, we have to serve others joyfully more often. Okay? All right. So I'm the only one thing standing between you and lunch. I love this verse and I'm not going to repeat it, but I want to leave you with this parting thought. A lot of you drove here today. When you get in your car and you're getting ready to leave, one of the first things you're going to do is you're going to close the door, probably put your seatbelt on, and if you're like me, you're going to kind of look and maybe adjust your rear view mirror. There's a reason that rear view mirror is so small and the windshield is so big. You want to check it, make sure you're safe, but everything else is out in front of us. So look forward. Know that together we can and will help each and every person who needs it, whether they're in this room, they're across the globe, they're across the state, and we can solve this and get that host down to zero. Thank you so much. God bless.
Wasn't that great? Awesome.